Welcome to the Leedz Edutainment Podcast, featuring in-depth interviews with people in hip-hop culture, based out of New England. Leeds. Wow, we made it.
We did it. Proud of us.
Yeah, I'm very proud of the day I had today.
Oh, why? What's going on?
Woke up to a bunch of crap and then my car wouldn't start.
Oh, that sucks. Sorry.
Yeah, so I had to juggle a million things, and luckily it all got done. The sad thing is it's a regular day in my life. It's not like anything unusual because my life has been since 40 is just a gigantic obstacle course.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Your car, it shits the bed every day.
If it's not that, it's going to be something else in my life. Just
Sure.
life is life, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Leedz Entertainment Podcast. We got a very special guest, rapper, producer, one-man band, Esh the Monolith, Esh The Isolations, Esh and Arc. Is there any more Eshes?
There was Esh and Docs at one point.
Oh yeah, okay, that's it.
Yeah. And it was just Esh at one point.
That's right. So what is it? I know it's Esh and the Isolations, but is that like you and the band, or is you like
That's
with the
just
band
me.
maybe? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
that's the thing. It's me. I'll show up as Esh and the Isolations, or maybe I'll have a band with me. You never know. But
Special
I
invited
am the
guest,
rapper, Esh and the Isolations.
right? Which means plus special invited guests.
That's true.
Well, we do also not to be confused with apparently is a German DJ out there by the name of Esh, and is why
Right.
this name has gone through many transformations.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's more famous than me, so he gets the name.
Or I always go back. Born and raised Providence, correct?
Yeah, Providence, Rhode Island.
Talk about that.
Providence is a good place to grow up. Not necessarily the best place to live forever. A lot of people kind of get stuck there, but I don't know. I love that city. Great place to grow up. Uh, there was a great rap scene coming up in like the late 90s, early 2000s. There was this like open mic every Tuesday called Unity that was thrown. Like the scene was kind of crazy. Like Tuesday nights would have, hundreds of people in it. Like it was just like a completely different time.
I've talked to some people from Rhode Island about the scene, and they always mention the open mics. Like
Yeah.
open mics were huge in that building of the community. Can you talk more about the other artists that were participating during your era? Like what was going on at that point?
Yeah, it's funny. I was just like going through records. I was cleaning up the crib and found a bunch of stuff from Providence. Like when I was coming up, it was like when Sage Francis first started popping off. There was a group called Roulette, which was Sean Jackson and Swanati. I don't know if you remember them.
I know
Uh,
Swan Money.
Clockworks was kind of Boston and Rhode Island. Who else? Funk Bunker Fleet, Roman Rock,
Don't know
DJ.
that one.
Oh, they were dope, man. They have a record. I think it's called Slap and Spit that still holds up today. It's a great record.
What is
I
that
think it's
song about? What is that song about besides slapping and spitting? What is it referring
no
to?
that
Slapping and
that's
spitting?
like that's the name of the whole album. Uh,
Oh,
yeah,
nice. It's a
but
concept album. It's a concept.
yeah.
So I read that you started off as a DJ though.
Yeah, first like first music I ever started getting into was playing the bass. But as far as like rap stuff goes, yeah, I bought a couple of turntables when I was in high school. Um, Started buying records from the Skippy Whites in Providence, not the Boston one.
Yep.
Um, yeah, and I was super young, and the DJs out there, like I was like a novelty to them because I was just like, you know, 13-year-old kid or something like that. interested in all like the new indie rap that was coming out, or like even dance records like back in the day, like drum and bass and shit like that was kind of popping off. And I was just this like young sponge, and I would go and like talk to Heartless Jim or DJ Buck or DJ Venom. They all worked at Skippy White's, and they actually like would put me on their like DJ nights at the living room in Providence when I was super young.
The living room.
Yeah, yeah.
Can't talk about Providence without talking about the living room.
Yeah, man, that place was a shithole, but you know what? It was pretty great. I had a lot of good times there.
I mean, my memories there is just so amazing of like
Yeah,
how big it was.
it was
You know,
huge.
like it was like the size of a call. Must have been like thousands capacity. How big it was. But yet you only
Yeah.
really used two rooms. But it was one of those old clubs that had rooms. Back when like clubs had different rooms and stuff. And but
Yeah,
probably the
the worst
worst.
part about it though was that pole. There was like
Yeah,
a pole directly in the
yeah.
center of the stage. It was like the worst placement for a load-bearing pole. And it was just
Or
like,
let's not talk about the bathroom too.
oh
The
yeah, the bathroom.
toilet, the toilet that had no walls on it, was just like in the middle of the bathroom.
It,
Didn't it not have like walls around it? Like,
oh yeah. And I played there I played there when I was in high school in a band, and one of the band members' dad threw up in the bathroom because it was so disgusting. Like he wasn't sick or nothing. He just like it was so fucking foul that
oh
he puked as soon as he went in there. Shout out to
yeah,
Brian Day's dad.
yeah. Shout out to the living room. It was bulldozed down, but that was for hip hop. When I started promoting shows, that was where the shows were being thrown. Was there.
Yeah, yeah,
Delahunty was Mike Delahunty was he was
yeah.
from Providence, I think, right? Rhode Island guy, I think.
Shout out Mike D. He's still doing his thing.
Yeah,
Still
yeah,
booking shows.
he was booking there, and he wanted to get more hip hop. So I was doing some stuff. I could never really make that room work because it was just so massive.
Yeah.
Um,
I played some
but
good
yeah,
shows there. I opened up for Cool Keith there.
nice,
And I think 7L and Esoteric were on that bill. That was kind of a
nice.
crazy too.
Yeah, you like go into like you'd like we went into other rooms to smoke blunts, like all the. It was just you could get away with anything in there. I think at the time, I don't think there was anybody. So maybe it might have been a security guard at the door, but that was about it. I think you could literally do whatever you want in there, and
Oh
no
yeah.
one would care.
I thought that's just like how clubs were because I grew up in Providence. Like it was like anything goes. Like there was definitely lots of like there was more blunt smoking and ciphers in the bathroom than like there was actual stuff like going outside. Like that was the place to be, was in the bathroom smoking and freestyling, you know.
Unless you needed to take a shit,
Yeah,
then everybody's gonna watch.
that's true.
It's funny you mentioned anything goes in Providence. My early memories of Providence is my friend's older brother went to Johnson and Wales,
Mhm.
and as high school kids, we would go down there and basically get into bars as high school kids. Like Rhode Island was just like a free for all. Providence in
Yeah.
particular was like a free for all. Like
Yeah,
if you
Providence is a
you knew the right
lawless.
person, you get anywhere. And you get bars anywhere, underage drinking, just craziness, fights, like fraternities. It was just nuts.
Yeah,
You grew up
no.
around that?
Yeah, it was yeah, definitely. It was a lawless place. Like, I mean, that city had, Buddy Cianci as its mayor that went to jail and then got out of jail and got reelected immediately. Like, it was a super corrupt local government, but yeah, that's how it was, man. Like, I was raised by like, you know, Italians running books in bars, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
uh, that's just like how it was down there. Like, there's
right.
the criminal element, like the 2-bit criminal element is very real in Providence.
What's it like now? Is it calmed down now? It must be calmed down by now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like when I go back there, a lot of it's unrecognizable, but
Yeah.
It's cool. Like you get older, and like the people who I know down there all like are running businesses and stuff like that. They all like bought bars
Right.
and stuff like that. So that's cool to see. But I don't know. I think everything's become a lot more tame in every city. So
Yeah, I think
probably.
I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, I was reading mentioned you had an older brother. Is that what I mentioned? Read,
Yeah, I do have an older brother.
and he says that you kind of got in a little trouble when you were young.
I did.
I don't know. I read I thought I read an article that you were like, "Hey, with your older brother, you got into some things you might not have should have got into, or something like that." Is that not true? I mean, any kid could say that.
Yeah, I know. I think that. Yeah, sure. We got into plenty of stuff. I mean, he definitely introduced me to records that I probably shouldn't have been listening to at that time. You know what I mean?
Ah, that's what happened.
Yeah, like, you know, NWA records or like Two Live Crew or something like that, you know, just
Yeah,
like,
rest in peace. One of them died. I
yeah,
forget the name. What's the name? Help me.
yeah,
Help.
I can't remember his name.
I should know. I'm gonna get called
I just
out for
remember
this.
Uncle Luke. That's it.
Yeah, it was China. China. I don't want to say the wrong thing, especially with this name. We get in trouble. But
Yeah.
yeah, I when I did Two Live Crew with the Middle East, it wasn't Luke, but it was the remaining members. It was a fun show.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that must have been fun.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I remember you also talking to me about when you were young, you kind of had some issues and you turned to meditation. You had someone that you were working with and you worked with, did some meditation that really helped you. Where was your mind at with that? I'm curious because I meditate and it helps me. So,
Yeah, that's like if you meditate regularly, however you do it, like I do like transcendental meditation. But it's like a superpower. Like it restructures your nervous system and how you think. Like if you can do it every single day and like make a habit of it and like training your mind to be, mindful in the moment, um, everything just kind of like floats off your back. Like uh, you know, it just like makes your life so much easier.
how often are you doing it? How long are you doing it?
Um, I've been kind of slacking lately, but you know, I did it for 20 minutes a day for 4 years straight, I think.
Yeah.
Like when I was like around making this new record, I was definitely meditating every day. Like I tend to gravitate towards it when things aren't going as well and I'm feeling like a little bit out of control of my life. It's something that like grounds me. And that particular time was pretty rough, so I was meditating every day to just keep myself steady. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I've been meditating for probably over 10 years now. Some days I miss it, some days I don't, some days I do it better, sometimes I don't, but I've been grounded through it as well.
Yeah,
Difficult times. So I encourage it. You know, most people when they start out, they won't be able to do it, right?
sure.
Because their mind is like used to being 100 miles an hour. So like I always tell people, it's like, you got to practice. It takes time. You got to practice doing it and slowing your brain down and breathing. Do guided if you have to. I do silence now, but whatever it takes, it really there's something to be said for it. It can really help you.
I'm curious, is that connected to your sobriety at all? Was that because
That's
those
how
were,
I learned about it. It that's they teach you that in sobriety, but it's bigger than that. It's bigger, obviously people who aren't sober can meditate, so it helps anybody, I think. But yeah, that's what got me into it. I probably wouldn't have done it if I didn't get sober.
yeah. Yeah, I was lucky enough to like get introduced to it at a very young age. Like my father was into it. Like that was
Nice.
his thing. And I was always just kind of like a tweaked out kid, always super anxious and he taught me that to like calm me down. Uh
Yeah,
and it's
anxiety, I mean, is crazy. So you always struggle with anxiety?
Oh yeah, big time. It's just like been a part of my life always. Like I can't remember not it's not like some event happened in my life and all of a sudden I was just like anxious after that. It's just always been there. I don't know. I guess some people are just wired that way.
Yeah, I think I'm probably wired that way too.
Yeah, I think more people than you would think are. Like we all
Yeah,
we
I mean,
especially
go
now.
ahead.
Like no, no, go ahead, go ahead.
No, I say most people I come across get some type of form of anxiety, some type, which usually stems from some kind of fear. Is really what drives it, right? What am I losing? What am I not getting? I'm thinking about tomorrow. I'm thinking about yesterday.
Yeah,
Meditation just keeps you where you're at now. And because anytime I think about the future, I'm getting anxious
yeah.
because I'm dealing with
Well,
something I don't, it's uncertain,
right,
right?
exactly. Just, unanswerable questions, and
Yeah.
sometimes mind just wants to fill them in with the worst possible scenario, like catastrophize and all that stuff.
Yeah, I've done that. I've been guilty of catastrophizing many
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
What's crazy though? All that worrying and all that anxiety and all that time I spent on that, I can't remember it at all helping or at all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you ever look back and go, oh, fucking glad I worried about all that shit that didn't happen fucking 20 years? You know what I mean? If you really look at what worrying does for you, and it doesn't affect anything, any result at all, and all you do is waste time doing it. You know what I mean? And it divides your mind and puts your focus somewhere else. It's just like if you can really try to get a grasp on that, man, life gets better.
It's so true, man. That's like one of the great things about getting older is you worry less. Like if anything, I want to go back to like my older self and be like, chill, dude. There's so much stuff you don't have to worry about. Like it's
Right.
going to work out in the end. Like you're just wasting your time worrying about all these things. You know what I mean?
It just doesn't help anything.
Right.
But we're just so trained at brains are so trained to try to fix something. We fixate on these things instead of trying to let it go sometimes. And
Yeah, yeah,
that takes practice.
for sure.
Anyways, moving on. So obviously, how did you stand out? Like I read somewhere that you're trying to be, you kind of wanted to be different than your average rapper. You know what I mean? Like that. How are you going to stand out from the rest of these rappers, basically that are rapping? What was your take on that?
Well, I think I don't know if I ever really was like trying too hard to be that way. I think naturally that's just kind of what happens. I think that
Okay.
like my influences maybe are a little bit uh different than like a typical rapper. I don't even really know what that means anymore. What like a
Well,
typical
you're right.
rapper is.
You're right. Back, nowadays, you're right. It's wide open. But when you were
Sure.
coming up,
Right.
it was a lot different. I mean, you had your Sage Francis's and you had your that scene was starting to emerge, becoming pretty big, but it wasn't. Rappers were kind of stereotypically one thing. Before that,
Yeah, definitely. And there was like a lot of rules.
right?
You had to be a certain way. You had
You
to
had to be
dress a certain way.
serious. Had to be
Yes.
serious all the time. Nothing's funny.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that set me apart too. Like I took things a lot less serious than a lot of other rappers did. You know what I mean? And like felt like I didn't look like a typical rapper at the time. And yeah, I don't know. Like my influences weren't the same. I was listening to rock records at the same time that I was listening to rap records, and almost hiding that fact because everything had to be so hip hop, you know what I mean? Everything had to like, you know, have to do with the four elements of hip hop and b-boying and DJing and all this stuff. There was just like these strict rules that like because it was something I loved so much, I was trying to like adhere to those rules, but at the same time, like inside of me being like, I don't know, I like all this other stuff too. And
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I totally. What were some of your influences, rock wise? I'm curious what else you were listening to.
uh at that time like when I started really like taking rap serious was like turn of the millennium, I guess, like early 2000s. And at the same time like the like indie rock scene at that time was amazing. It was like the Strokes and TV on the radio and yeah, yeah, yeahs and stuff like that, that like I really liked at the time, but kind of hit it a little bit. Um, but plenty of other influences. Like I had like jazz records growing up and stuff like that. Like I
Yeah,
just I just like what I like and I incorporate it into who I am and who I am as an artist.
right. Yeah, well, luckily the indie scene did start breaking in those 2000s, and then that opened up a whole another world. I mean, I remember a lot of people didn't like it. A lot of these traditional hip hop heads didn't like company
Yeah.
flow.
Right.
I don't like that different shit. I like that weird shit. You'd always hear that,
I know. It's so funny. Like I think about, Doom is one of my favorite rappers of all time, easily.
Right.
And he's this like icon now. But like back in the day, like when he first came out, people were like, what are you listening to this cartoon shit for? Like I
Yeah.
remember friends of mine being like, why are you listening to this cartoon shit? I'm like, because this is like the dopest stuff ever. And it took 20 years or something to all of a sudden him, be on that like Jay Dilla level. Yeah, I don't know if it like takes somebody passing away to like reach that level, but like now everybody loves Doom, and it's like even like, hard rappers like, West Side Gun and stuff like that all cite him as an influence. But I swear, like back in the day, uh, people did not like that.
Yeah, he was very underground. I mean, he was, obviously had the KMD stuff, for then, but like it wasn't until like Mad Villain, I think. Like when Mad Villain dropped, I remember people like, whoa, because that was again, we're talking about crossing over into Pitchfork, these hip hop acts that were like ending up on Pitchfork,
Right, right.
and getting play on indie rock when it was called indie rock radio, which now it's just called alternative. But
Yeah,
it's and then momentum built from there. Danger Doom, it got pretty big, and he's on TV and stuff. But
right.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that took he was an acquired taste for a while.
Yeah.
What's your favorite Doom
No.
record?
I mean, I think the best like it's tough. It changes all the time, but I think I'm a food guy at this point. I would have said Mad
Ooh,
Villain because that seems like that's a perfect album to me.
yeah, it
But
really
I don't
is.
I gravitate towards food now. They're all
Yeah.
great though.
So when do you start like taking rap serious and like really jumping into everything?
Um, I mean, probably in the early 2000s is when I was like, let me at least like try to do this because there's something that like never it didn't really seem like attainable for me. Like I was making beats and DJing, and it felt more comfortable to be that like behind the scenes dude. Um, but so I kind of like started a little bit later for my age, like trying to like be out front. But yeah, it's probably like early 2000s or something like that. But
And were you producing your own stuff right away, or were you using other people's beats?
I was producing my stuff right away, and then I started using other people's beats for a while and stopped making beats forever. I only like picked up making beats again on my last record, Idiot Fingers. That was like I hadn't made a beat in like 10 years when I first started making that record. Um, and then just got back into it because like I was working with Arc for a while. When I did the Darwin's Frankenstein album, that's just like a bunch of different producers. So you know, I had mostly worked with other producers and then picked it back up afterwards.
I want to get into these that later stuff, for sure. Those
Yeah,
albums, I'm gonna definitely talk more about those. But your first album, I forget the name of it. I read it. What was the name of your very first album?
The Adventures of an Eccentric Superhero.
Okay, So I did read the review on that. Okay, and
Oh wow.
it threw Doom. It threw Doom. Mentioned Doom. Like we'll move over MF Doom. Here comes something like MF Doom meets his villain, friggin' Esh the Monolith or something.
Oh wow.
And you don't know about this?
Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, you probably forgot about it. But
Yeah.
it's described you as self-deprecating, booze guzzling, weed smoking superhero.
Hey.
Is that what you were going for?
At that time, yeah, definitely. I was
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that was the much more debaucherous time in my life for sure. So I think that description kind of fits.
I've never seen. I always saw you with a PBR every time I saw you. So you know what
Yeah, yeah.
I mean.
But that seems like a different person to me. That's like that's
But that
so
was like
funny. Like
2000. That was like 2008. I read
yeah.
that.
Yeah. But dude, yeah, I was so drunk all the time or on drugs. Like I think back and I'm like, wow, dude, you wasted so much time just like getting fucked up and, you know, chasing all these things that you shouldn't be chasing, you know what I mean? Hanging out with all these people you shouldn't be hanging out with. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's another thing I wish I could have told my younger self is like get these knuckleheads out of your life. Like, you know, be true to yourself and chill out a little bit, you know?
Uh, no, I mean you and me both on that one, brother.
Yeah, I think it's that's kind of an anxiety thing too. I think I didn't have a handle on my anxiety, so it was just I replaced it with booze or whatever, you know, whatever
The
vice.
life, the lifestyle of a musician, and me as a promoter in the bars and around making music and all of that, it just kind of comes with it when you're in your 20s. It's like everyone's drinking, everyone's doing drugs, everyone's thinks that you can just go like this forever. You get sucked into it real freaking easy. You might not even try to. You just on one day you're like, I'm totally, the hooks are in me. I can't get them out. You know what I mean? And that's where I found myself. I
Yeah,
didn't plan for it. It wasn't in the plan,
yeah,
but that's what it was.
just kind of happens.
Yeah. I think I hear you for the first time because XL Magazine says 15 rappers you should know about. I might have heard you before, but I feel like that was like, who is Esh the Monolith at this point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously might have heard you before, but then I was like, here's an article about you in XL Magazine. How did that even happen, and what was the effect of that?
You know, like how that happened, I'm not even sure, but like I do remember getting a call from the archetype being like, "Yo, you're in double XL." And I was like, "Oh shit, this is crazy."
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think I was just it was when I had first moved to Boston. So I was kind of like out in the scene a lot. I was hanging with like all the gray sky appeal kids, you know,
We're
hanging
from
with
New Hampshire.
we're
From
from
New Hampshire.
yeah,
Actually,
but
no.
they
Subtext is from. Is he from Mass? I think Subtext is from Mass.
well, I met them in Boston. They were like living in Allston doing the whatever those warehouse shows that they were doing.
Oh yeah, the warehouse show era, Rug Road.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so I was just like out all the time and doing shows nonstop and that was like a good time. But I definitely like didn't capitalize on any of it. I was too wrapped up in other things.
Yeah. You had videos with Nick Heller, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we all did at one point. Amazing director. I mean, he was so ahead of his time with all our videos. Like before he started helping us all out, everybody was just straight point and shoot, right? It was like, just rap in front of a wall, whatever. But
Yeah.
Nick would like really push for these crazy, what do you call it, treatments.
Yeah.
And we all got amazing videos out of it, yourself included.
Yeah,
It's too
definitely.
bad he quit. Too bad he quit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny that I think the first music video I ever made was directed by Nick Heller, who, you know, he's like New York Nico now, right? So, you know, he's doing very well for himself. Good for him.
What is New York Nico? I don't know what that is.
Um, it's a Instagram page,
Oh,
Instagram profile, but you know, it's pretty well known. I think he might be like directing movies or at least like shorts now, something like that. But
I mean,
yeah, big up.
basically what he's doing. Those videos were basically shorts.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but
I
yeah,
that might have been when I first met Chesky too. I feel like was through Nick Heller
that's a
shooting
that
Boston.
that's another important relationship I think you develop is your relationship with Chesky and Fake Four, right? It's an important one.
Yeah, I mean for sure. Chesky's that's the homie. I've never like put anything out on Fake Four or anything like that, but you know, uh been in that dude's orbit for a while. Toured with
But you did a
him.
lot of yeah. I was about to say you did shows with him and toured with him, right?
Yep. Yeah, yeah. Uh, you know, probably doing some more shows soon. And yeah, no, he's good dude, good person to know, great artist, one like really like one of my favorite performers of all time. Like if you want to talk about somebody being like outside of the mold of rap and,
Yeah,
not easily categorizable, that is absolutely that dude, And he can back it up with talent on whatever like lane he decides to go in. So it's pretty dope.
yeah. I never forget about Chesky's show. I forget what the show, which one it was. I done a bunch and walked into the room. He's performing in the middle of the room, not on the stage. The Middle East upstairs. He's in the middle of the room, and he's got everybody in a circle,
Yeah.
a circle, and he's just playing the guitar, singing acoustic, and then just belts out into this like crazy rap. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, this is something else. This is something else.
Oh yeah, I seen him like straight up like Pied Piper an entire audience out. Like I saw him with his guitar just like lead a group of people out of the venue.
To the merch table. Let's
Yeah,
go.
right. He starts starts
Big
pointing
four
at
merch. Let's go.
stuff.
Yeah. You kind of pride yourself on being DIY artist, don't you? Like you kind of do things DIY. You play DIY venues. It's a
Yeah.
term that is becoming more prevalent now, or was, at least like I'd say 3 or 4 years ago. That's all I heard about was DIY. Everything's DIY. I don't want to play a venue. I want to play a DIY game. Talk to me about that experience for you.
I mean, I think when you aren't easily categorized, you know, some of those either like event spaces or like venues or whatever aren't necessarily going like it's gonna be hard to like jump on somebody else's thing, right? I feel like as far as shows go, like that DIY atmosphere is like, creating your own thing. Um, and even in like releasing music and, making the music, it's that same mentality that's like create something that's your own and, don't be beholden to anybody else's schedules or opinions or anything like that. Like, it's good to listen to people's opinions, but like ultimately controlling your own destiny as an artist, that seems like what DIY means to me.
Yeah.
And like as
Before I
far as
forget, go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, brother Marquise from Two Live Crew. That was the one who just passed away. I didn't want to get that wrong. Rest in peace. I met
Rest in.
brother Marquise.
Oh,
Good
nice.
show.
Yeah.
Um, Super nice guy. Super nice guy. Back to DIY. Is it do you as far as venues go when you're playing someone's house or warehouse? What's that experience like? Because I never really participated in that because I always was always in licensed venues. What is
Yeah.
how is the experience different than a venue?
It's obviously a lot more intimate. Like some of like the early touring that I did was doing, house shows around the country. And then like, there's people who I met at those shows that, are still, friends of mine to this day. Like it is a very like, you know, intimate experience where like you're getting to know these people because you're in their house. You know what I mean? Like you're really like sharing a common experience with them as opposed to like being up on stage, which is cool. I love being on stage, but it's not like you're, you know, on this like pedestal in front of a bunch of people. It's like, okay, here's something that we're all experiencing together. And I really love that about, shows like that. And, I'm trying to bring that into my performance now where it's like, okay, this is something that's not for me on stage and it's not for you over there. It's for like us in this room and like let's make this a communal experience. You know what I mean? And that was
Yeah.
easier to do at house shows for sure.
Yeah, I was always blown away by how the house shows. I was talking to someone who had well, his house was one of those places where bands would tour and come by. I'm like, they're touring and coming to your house? It's just crazy. It's like,
I
oh
feel
yeah,
like
they tour,
yesterday.
they play, and then sleep on the couch. I'm like, this sounds crazy to me.
Oh yeah, that's crazy. Cause you can have the greatest experience ever, or you can go to some like punk flop house and, you know, deal with psychotic people on drugs. It's it's like it's a crapshoot. But,
Yeah.
I've had mostly good experiences doing it. I feel like that's gonna come back for a lot of people, like the state of nightlife and venues and, any major city is kind of tough, you know.
Very.
So I can imagine there being a lot more like, unofficial shows and like house shows and things like that. Like in Boston, if you think about how crazy like Porch Fest was this year, I don't know if you're like familiar with that
You know,
and
I know
some,
Porch Fest. I know Porch
yeah,
Fest.
it was insane this year. There was, thousands of people everywhere. And I
What
think
was the big band? One of the what big band played it this year? It was a big one I read about.
Guster,
Yeah,
I'm
Custer played.
honestly like not too familiar with them, but
You don't know Guster?
I
Maybe
mean, I
nobody has
know
a
Guster, but I'm not bumping Guster.
no.
I don't know.
Never know. I didn't really listen to. I knew who they were though. I know that was a big name in the late '90s. They were
Yeah,
pretty big.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, dude, like Boston for small venues, like you since Great Scott went down, and you got screwed because you were playing the Rockwood, which it's funny because I didn't really hear about that place. I went there, I saw it when you booked a show there, and then I ended up doing a gig there as far as dropping off backline. Um, I was like, oh, this is a nice little 100-person-ish spot. This is perfect for local shows. This is great. I should, try to do something here. Next week it's closed. I was like, what the hell?
Yeah,
It
that
sucks.
was crazy.
But it
Like
was
I
in Fenway. I mean, I'm sure the rent was ridiculous,
mhm.
and they couldn't make it work.
Yeah. They I thought it was kind of a cop out that they were like, "Oh, I mean, I'm sure it's true, but like they're like we rely on bar sales and people weren't drinking, so we had to shut down." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm I don't know, man.
Um, how long were they even there? Were they even there a year?
I don't know.
It,
I went
it
to one show there ever, and I thought the exact same thing. I was like, cool, this
yeah.
is something Boston could use. 150 cap room,
Is that how big it was?
decent sound system, you
Yeah.
know, off of public transportation, and like, yeah, can't have nice things, I guess.
Well, I just think the rent. I think the rent's too high to make venues work. You need cheap rent because it's hard to make money. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? It is. Not
yeah,
that it can't be done, but historically venues had started in cheap areas.
okay. Well, you have,
Until they become corporate. If you've got like a corporate conglomerate like Live Nation and Bowery that can take losses on one because they make it up everywhere else, yeah, you're going to be fine. But your average, you know, local place needs cheap money because it's not open all day. It's only open for like
that's
four
true.
hours,
Now,
right? But you're paying rent for the whole fucking time you're there.
right. So
That's how the
like,
Middle East survived. That's how the Middle East survived. They had cheap rent for years.
yeah, okay, that's what I was gonna ask you. Like,
Bugs.
did you you've been
Mosquito got in.
throwing shows forever, right? Was there a point where you saw it stop being profitable? Because it
As
seemed
a
like
promoter or as a promoter or a venue.
like any of it, just like throwing shows, venue, promoter, all that stuff. It seemed like there was a point where, you know, things went south. You know what I mean?
For me,
Just for everybody.
I mean things
Like,
did go south for me. It's fine, but my whole life went completely south. But it's as far as the venue goes, as a promoter, I mean, I don't think unless you get someone charging you more for rent, which did happen when you rent the room, it all depended on the act you booked. As a venue, the Middle East struggled because they had to buy the building. So when they
okay,
had to buy the building, they had this gigantic mortgage. And then with that gigantic mortgage, that put a lot of pressure on them financially because it was probably like double to triple the time of what they were paying us rent. So that's where the venue struggled as far as making money goes. And that's why I learned that the rent is the bottom line. You know what I mean? Like what you
yeah.
pay for rent. And it's also tough. Where do you find a good location that people are going to go to? Okay, let's see you find cheap rent. Where's it going to be? Well, is it way out of the way that people's not going to be able to go there or hate going there? Right?
Right.
Is it going to be next to a bunch of houses? They're going to complain about noise.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to pull off. It's probably the most toughest thing to pull off, I think, for any business to make money. I have yet to see. Now, if you hit it out of the park, you're going to hit it out of the park, but it's tough to get all those things moving in your favor.
But it did seem like, 10 years ago or something, it was a lot easier to stay afloat as a venue or as a promoter than it is now. Like,
Well, rent was, all I can say is rent was probably cheaper 10 years ago.
yeah, yeah, I guess that's it.
You had church, remember church? And they were
Yeah,
there.
that was one of those ones that was like in a residential area, so it had to
Yeah.
be.
And they suffered.
Yeah,
They also try to be a restaurant too. So that's tough too. You know what I mean? So
sure.
it's very hard to make work. And like I crunched numbers. I was going to open, I thought my whole destiny was to open my own place and do that whole thing.
Yeah.
And I was looking at all the numbers and put it all in front of me with professionals that knew more than me. It was like, you need dirt cheap rent.
Hmm.
That was the bottom line.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my guess with Rockwood. They weren't booking the right shows that were probably brought enough drinkers in. I don't know. When I was
Yeah.
there, it was a bunch of young college kids like
Mhm.
that didn't drink. Exactly what it was.
I mean, I also heard that they hadn't paid anybody. They were like stiffing artists on their
Mm. That's what happens when you start businesses starts failing. I'm saying it's right, but that's part of the game, part of what happens. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
sure. Yeah.
it's not right, but yeah, I think they just had a bad go at it.
Yeah.
It's tough. Hopefully, yeah, but we definitely need 100 to 200 person venues in the Boston metro area. That is the biggest need, in my opinion. What I see
Yeah. Like everywhere. I don't know. I don't know if that exists in other cities either. Like
doesn't.
it doesn't seem like it, but I could be wrong. It's just I feel like people are going out a lot less. Younger people aren't going out as much. People definitely aren't going out at night as much. You know what I mean? Like I feel like nightlife itself has suffered post-pandemic. Like,
Yeah, I think what I've seen is a shift. What I've seen is like you're right. I think people don't. Let's just say this: people don't need to go out to a show to be social anymore, right? Like I can just date the rise of dating apps, right? Like you know what I mean? You don't even need to do that anymore. Like you used to, if you wanted to date back in the day, you had to go somewhere where people were. You know what I mean? Like if
yeah,
that was the show, that was the show. You know what I mean? But so I think that's probably contributing to something. I also think that like nice bars in Boston, there seems to be a rise in that aren't venues. Like I'm seeing all these really nice bars that are really furnished really well, like expensive drinks, and the atmosphere is kind of crazy, like expensive atmosphere.
Mhm.
Seems to be like that's what more people are interested in going out to these days
Yeah, maybe.
with the new generation. I mean, they'll go see a show. Everything is nice, right? All these big venues, MGM, nice, Roadrunner, nice. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like everything is big and bad now,
Right. And less intimate too. Like if
right?
I go to see a show where there's hundreds of people, I'm getting less out of it than I am going to see a show with 150 people. Like when you're in a room with 150, 200 people, you're all really experiencing that thing. You know what I mean? Whereas like, Roadrunner's a dope venue, but like I feel like if I go and see a show there, it's me watching the show in a sea of people, and it's like it's not necessarily like the same experience.
Yeah. Did you go to Boston Calling?
I didn't, no. I've been
Uh,
once, but I didn't go this year.
super, super nice. I
Yeah,
mean, I think about my first festival experience with like Lollapalooza in '96. Okay.
nice.
Everyone is jammed, like Metallica, Soundgarden, Shaolin Monks, Rancid, Ramones, a few others. There was no VIP options. There's no like nice air conditioned bathrooms. Everyone is like in Vermont in tents and like it was just like crazy. You get a ticket was like $25.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, but there's no other option. Everything was GA from what I remember. And but now you go to you go to Boston Calling. It's like, well, you can get the VIP pass. It gets you into this area where there's air conditioned bathrooms and an elevated height that you can see the show from here. And in these sections, there's section off the front of the stage. You can pay more to be in the front over here and away from the crowd. It's just, it's amazing to me how nice they have made festivals.
Yeah,
Like you can, if you have like, I know people that like socially can't handle big crowds, right? Like they don't like being around like too many people, right? You could go to these festivals and be away, pay to be away from everybody and just a small amount of people.
yeah.
If you got the money, but this shit is fucking expensive.
Yeah, that's the only time I went, somebody gave me an artist badge to it.
Yeah,
So
I'll
I was
get you
just,
good places.
yeah, definitely.
I'll
I
get you
had
somewhere.
oysters with Weezer.
Did you really?
Yeah. I was just chilling back there.
Yeah.
Like they didn't know I wasn't playing. Uh, that was my only Boston Calling experience. But I do want to play Boston Calling for the powers that be.
You know who the powers that be on that is, do you?
I believe I do. Yeah,
All right, so you know who to call then.
yeah. So let's do it. Who wants to see Esh and the Isolations on Boston Calling?
You
Everybody
earned it,
wants to see
bro.
that.
You earned it.
Hell
You earned
yeah,
it. You should
earned
be
it.
on there.
You better believe I earned that shit.
You're gonna have to ask nicely. You should get on there. You know, if you know who to call with your resume, you should be able to get on there next
Right on.
year.
Next year. Next year,
Definitely.
Boston Calling, Esh and the Isolation.
You're just gonna have to reach out a
Mhm.
little more, maybe. I don't know.
I do be
But
chilling in this basement an awful lot.
yeah, I'm sure you drank a lot of those beers too. Um, back to you. Um, talk about you and Archetype working together because again, think the Esh and Arc project, which I thought was a great project. I love the videos. The videos were hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. That was
Talk about
that's fun.
that experience.
Um, that was like when I first moved to Boston. Like Ark's been a really good friend of mine. We both went to Emerson together. Like met on the first day. And we just been, very close since. So when I like first moved to Boston, we put out like an EP together, and then did the LP that's got like Slain and Rex on it. Um, really, I feel like both of us just kind of like figuring out what we're doing. Um, but yeah, that was a great experience. Definitely like opened up some doors in town for me, and uh, yeah, still work with him to this day. We haven't really done any producer rapper albums since.
Yeah, that release party that I helped promote that one too. That was a great
Yeah,
show.
that was a great show.
That was an amazing show. I
Yeah.
remember you being so happy about that show at the end of the night. Like, this is the best. This is one of the best shows. It was really
Yeah.
great
I still
turnout. Great
I still
acts
think
on
about
that one.
that show. Yeah, it was like it was a good vibe. You know, it's like record release shows, that's like how it goes. You know, you get to
Right.
finally really like celebrate your work.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. I remember the because you brought Tiger Man Whoa out to do the song.
right.
And the hip hop audience, because there was some regular traditional hip hoppers, and I think they were kind of like, "What the heck is going on?" But the hook they did was so catchy that you had all these like hip hoppers in the crowd singing along and doing the how'd it go? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
whoa, forget how it went,
I
but
don't
they were all
remember.
chant. Yeah, how do you not remember your own song? All right,
It's
they
so hard. I'm not like I can't even remember my like new songs.
well,
It's hard for me to remember
I'll tell
songs.
you, you had a whole hip hop crowd doing a Tiger Man Whoa chant at the end of the night,
Yeah.
and a lot of Narragansett getting cracked that night, but you know,
Yeah.
that was a
I haven't
great
seen
show.
them forever. Those were wild bearded boys.
Yeah, they were unique, my man. They were unique.
Yeah.
Darwin Frankenstein
Yeah.
is that's back to you solo, right? At
Yeah,
this
that was
point, you're no longer Esh the Monolith. You're no longer Esh and Arc. You're Esh.
right. Yeah. It was just so it's me and like Ark did do a couple beats on there. Lightfoot did a beat on there. Rain did some stuff. I think it started off as a project between me and Rain, and it just didn't work out that way, and kind of filled in the rest of it with other producers that I know. So that was like kind of the first one since my like very first record where I felt like I was kind of like at the helm again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The why drop the monolith in your name?
I don't know. I got sick of it. It didn't feel right.
Okay. Um, more importantly about this album was your artwork that you had done for the Darwin's Frankenstein, which I thought was arguably some of the best cover art that came out that year.
Yeah, I like how that record looks. My friend Lainey did that. She's a
Amazing.
editor over at like the Wall Street Journal now. I think she does. I don't know. She does crazy work, but she's a great artist. Lainey Scotty.
Yeah. I that year because that year I was nominated to do the Boston Music Awards
Nice.
to write down who I thought, I got all serious with it, right? I got like I was doing research. I was
Yeah.
like, this is going to be legit this year. I'm going to write, I'm going to take this very serious. Every person that nominee I'm putting down, I'm well researching. I'm calling people, everything. I put your album down there, for album
Yeah.
and artwork, and the results came in, and it was the most political BS I've ever seen. Nominees that were like the worst. It was just like so inaccurate, and I was like, I'm never doing this much effort ever again.
Yeah.
And I can see why people don't, because when you do, it doesn't matter anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that seems like what that institution has been, but I also, I don't really know the inner workings of Boston Music Awards, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to hate on it. I'm just saying
yeah,
I really spent a lot of time trying to make it as accurate as possible. My
sure.
first time doing it, and it was just a total. I'm not saying my opinion is all, everything, but I did research.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wasn't coming from a place of just, and I wasn't being biased, either. So I was like, whatever. So, all right. So time goes on. Now it becomes Esh in the Isolations.
Mhm.
And was this initially you trying to get a band together?
Initially it was me trying to be clever about a fake band name. Uh,
Ah,
and then I started working with a couple of musicians, and then it kind of turned into a real band for a little bit. Uh, and then kind of became just me again. I don't know, it goes back and forth.
yeah.
It's a name where I can show up solo or I can show up with a band, you know what I mean?
got you. I mean, I think when I saw you play with the band, I was like, to me, that was it. You know what I mean? Now, granted,
Yeah.
it's tough to keep a band together. I get why you do that, but it's but I was like, this sounds really good. Now, did you get back to producing on Idiot Fingers this album? Were
Yeah.
you back in full producer mode?
Yeah, I produced that whole record.
Great job,
And
man.
thank you.
Great
And
job.
that was like, me learning how to make beats again because I hadn't done it for so long. And it was like a good excuse for me to like escape a lot of bad things that was happening in my life at the time, and just like throw myself into music. And like I rented an office space in Hyde Park and just went there every single day and relearned how to make beats and record myself and everything like that. And that was like very much made in that room. You know what I mean? That's kind of like where the isolations came in because it was like me blocking out the world, you know?
Right. You talk about, I read, I remember you telling me this, and I remember reading about this too, that some of the tragedies that was happening prior in the middle of making this album. Talk to me a little bit more what was going on at that point.
For Idiot Fingers,
Yeah.
like my father was he was really like he got sick really quick, like just like kind of out of the blue got really sick. And there was this like basically 8 month period between him getting diagnosed with cancer and then and him passing away. So it was like this like really quick thing that happened out of nowhere. Like the same thing, my ex-wife's mom had died like, months before too. uh I don't know, there was just like a lot of kind of like compounded traumatic experiences that were happening. And um that record was really like a way for me to try to avoid uh dealing with those things.
So when these type of tragedies hit as an artist, you tend to move towards the music, or do you close up?
Definitely move towards the music. Like I've always used music and like writing as a way to like process what's happening around me. And like if you listen to Idiot Fingers, there's really like not much in terms of like what it's about that really like dealt with any of that stuff. But like you kind of write and you make stuff, and years later you realize that you were processing what was going on at that time. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm going to sit here and write a record about my dad dying, but my dad dying definitely contributed to the atmosphere of like where my mind was and what I was writing and what I was making at that time. You know what I mean? It just kind of like bubbles up inside of you, and then whatever comes out comes out. You know what I mean?
Right. As far as the production goes, what will you do? How would you describe your sound? I hear like a lot, use a lot of synthesizers.
Um, Now or on that record, I was using like a lot of synthesizers, but it was like kind of whatever I had access to.
Okay.
I would buy like, shitty old synthesizers from like the 80s, like toy synthesizers and stuff like
Right.
that, and use those. And then like my main thing that I use to make beats is a machine, or at least it was then. Um, yeah, and then just like I didn't really sample at all. Um,
Right.
like I would
Didn't
sample my,
sound like it. Didn't
yeah,
sound like it.
yeah. But that record is definitely me figuring it out. You know what I mean? Like I'm happy with that record for sure. But like, you know, I think about where I am now as a producer, and I'm like, whoa, like they've definitely come pretty far.
Yeah. In this new album, it's nowhere to be found. Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, you're full production on this one.
Yeah, full production. Co-produced by my homie Jesse Russell, who's worked with Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, and he worked on the soundtrack for the Card Counter, that Paul Schrader movie.
Yeah.
Um,
I've yet to see that, but I want to.
yeah, it's good. Yeah,
My buddy was like, it's a real dark,
it's
depressing
dark.
movie. He said, it's real dark and depressing. You'd love it. I'm like, that sounds right.
Yeah, it's dark. I do think that the soundtrack is the best part of it, and I got to work a little bit on that, help those guys out, which was
Nice.
kind of a cool experience.
That's a big
Um,
band, Black Motorcycle. Was it Black Motorcycle Club? Is that what it's called?
Black Rebel Motorcycle Club, yeah.
Black Rebel. I've seen that name. I'm not. I listen to rock too, but I know that band. I've seen that band a lot.
Yeah, yeah, they're big, they're
Yeah,
tour bus big.
yeah. Tour bus big. I like that. Tour bus big. Um. So how you feeling about the album? Then it just came out. Let's talk about the inspiration behind it.
Um, the inspiration, but I was just like post post pandemic. Uh, yeah, I had kind of like started putting the band together, so I was working with Jesse more, um, and we got used to working with each other, and so I would get into his studio, and we were just like kind of throwing ideas around, um, and again trying to avoid bad things that were happening in my life, throwing myself into music. I was basically living at his house in Merrimack, Massachusetts
I know where
for
that is. I lived in Groveland, not too far from there.
oh
Georgetown,
nice. Yeah.
Georgetown, Groveland. I grew up there as
Yeah.
a kid. My
Yeah.
childhood.
Yeah,
John Cena is no. John Cena's from West Newbury. Next town over.
I've seen his crib. Jesse definitely pointed it out to me. He's like, "Oh, John Cena lives up on that hill."
Oh, he's still there. He still lives there.
I think he still owns the house at least.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, it was and there was like kind of pandemic time. Like we started working on the record and then pivoted to the Card Counter soundtrack, and then afterwards went back and started working on it. Was definitely uh trying to avoid more bad stuff in my life, and was living with him for a little bit. Um, and we finished the record. I got all like the writing done, and then lightning bolt hit his house, and and it burned down.
Oh shit!
Yeah,
Here you
yeah.
are. No way. A lightning set the whole house on fire. I've
I
heard that happening.
They think that is what happened. It hit something on the property, and um ended up, yeah, the his house burned down, the studio that we were working in burned down, like
All
we
music gone. All this music gone. You made.
yeah, we had like just finished tracking everything. Like we were still working on the record, but everything was tracked. Yeah, whole thing burned down, and he salvaged some of the stuff out of the studio, one of which was a small hard drive that had the record on it. So
Oh shit!
yeah.
Oh my god!
So after a year of assuming that it was gone forever, it popped up in an almost finished version. And so I had all these files. I had to he was kind of like out of the picture at that point because he had to deal with, you know, finding a place to live and all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh
And
my god!
so I just had all these files, and I started trying to make something of it. And actually ended up bringing it to the archetype, who was able to help me like get it over the finish line. So there was there was a good amount of like collaboration on that one, but it was crazy. Yeah, I thought it was gone. Definitely never thought that anybody would ever hear it. I had already moved on to a couple of different records that I was working on, and then all of a sudden it popped
Wow.
back up, and I was like, okay, let's finish. let's finish this thing.
Wow, man. That's a
Yeah.
crazy story right there, dude.
Yeah, it was pretty, it was nuts.
I gotta tell you, I've been listening to your stuff for a while. These last two projects, Idiot Fingers and this one, I feel like you really musically have found your stride.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Like, and the, you know, the stuff that I'm working on now is kind of crazy too. Like, yeah, uh, after the studio burned down, I built this place here. You can't really see, but uh built a studio, took 3 months demoing and building a studio, and like, so I'm here every single day working. Uh and now when I get in here, I'm like, all right, definitely definitely like riding this wave at the moment, you know what I mean? So I'm super proud of Nowhere to Be Found, but it's definitely the first in a number of records that people are going to hear from me that you know, to just keep on getting better and better, you know.
I always say that to artists, just keep doing your thing and they'll get better and better, And I feel like if you really put the effort in, you will get better regardless. I
Yeah.
think when people just kind of half-ass it is when they don't care, they're not good. You know what I mean?
And like, this is kind of a cliche, but you really do have to love the process. And you know, I think that there's been times in my life where uh like it's been more caught up with like the validation of other people saying they like me or my stuff or
Right.
whatever. And when you do that, it just makes you insane as an artist because people are fickle. Like, you're out there trying to guess what people like, and that will make you go insane. But, you
Right.
know, if you love recording and writing and, you know, making beats or whatever, then you're good. Like, that's your validation, is to like be better than you were before. And once you hit that, and you know, maybe leave the house every once in a while, like, good things will come, you know what I mean?
I like that. We come from an era where validation was part of the business. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
so and so gives you a review. You know what I mean? Like so and so is this. So and so put it here, or that. You know what I mean? Like there was gatekeepers where you were trying to appease because you want a career in music. It's nice to be have survived that and be in an era where you can just be you from wherever you are. Like you might have to, back in the day, you had to move to a city where your music was more receptive. You know what I mean? Like
That's
it,
true.
the music you made was not easy for you to be in Boston. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
you might have done better, and you probably would have done better in Minnesota. You know what I mean? Like as far
But
as the music you made.
I was also out there on the road trying to like bring it
Right.
to people
But
as
people had
possible.
to do that. People had to move to an area where their music was more popular just to have a career.
Yeah.
I know guys that moved to Europe, you know,
Yeah.
artists that moved to Europe because hey, Germany's bumping my shit more than the United States,
Yeah.
so
You know?
like we're in an era now where you can be who you really want to be, get it out there all yourself for the most part. You might not have a crazy push behind you, but you can at least feel comfortable in what you make, I think, and not have to, like you said, appease the rap gods or
Mhm.
the music gods.
The only downside is that there's just so much noise, you know? It's
Yeah,
just
so
completely, it's tough to like cut through the noise just on like social media or something like that, you know?
yeah. Well, this is
And
where I say the consistency comes in. If you're going
mm,
to battle that, just be consistent with your art because that's the only thing that's going to win. Now, some people are like, well, that's a lot of time and effort, but that's just what it is. And you don't necessarily always have to post new content. That's what people, I think, make mistakes is they're like, it's going to be new and exclusive. No, no, it doesn't, because what you posted a week ago is completely forgotten.
yeah,
Maybe you do it in some other form. So it's like content is disposable, but it's also recyclable.
yeah,
So you're also in that advantage. But
yeah, sure.
yeah, doing great. Talk about the show. So we forgot to mention this. So Rockwood Falls Bar, where are you in a warehouse again? Are we back DIY here? What are we doing?
No, I think the place is just called Warehouse 11. Um, It looks like I've never been there, but it looks like an event space. It's pretty nice. It's like
Where is it?
100 Somerville.
Okay.
Uh yeah, Warehouse 11 in Somerville with Shrapnel, uh Sleeping Dogs, not really. Um Fick and Lung. So it's like a lot of people in there. So what happened was Rockwood Music Hall closed May 1st. Didn't tell me about the show.
What's
Uh
that? Were you
I
expecting
was,
a
I
phone
was
call? The business is done. I'm not even
yeah.
get a courtesy call.
Yeah, no, I found out on Twitter. Somebody was like, Rockwood Music Hall
On
called. I was like,
Vanyaland. I found
yeah,
out
yeah.
Vanyaland. Let me know.
I was like, fuck. Um and I was booking it through Nick Oliver Booking Company. Uh,
Salute.
Salute for sure. Um and he was booking a tour for Shrapnel. They were coming on June 15th. So we just made a quick pivot to go over there, combine the two shows. And those are the homies too, like Prem and Castro are, definitely, yeah, definitely the homies. So it's gonna be a fun show.
You really are underground, bro. You're like under the underground.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
this a little bit. I feel like
yeah. Everything's
nail it
underground.
cover.
Ash is underneath that, looking up with all his DIY.
Oh man, I
Also,
want I want to make
go ahead.
pop songs. Let's go.
Yeah, I gotta give it to you, brother. You also, aside music, you're a project manager. I mean, we talked about this. You
Uh, I
oversee.
run I run my own business. Like,
Nice.
I run the studio basically. I just like try to get companies to pay me for doing whatever, Like
What is whatever? If you don't mind me asking, what is
I
whatever?
write songs for people if they need them.
Licensing? Is that
Not
licensing work or
licensing much,
custom?
but no, it's like work for hire. So they'll be like,
Yeah.
write me 5 songs for this product or whatever, and then I'll do that. Or, video I'll do for people, photography, stuff like that. I've done a lot of like writing for people. I worked for Marvel. I did some writing on a show for them. Yeah, bunch of different stuff.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
That
Like
is.
I said, like I'm really not. I had a full-time job at a good company for 8 years, and I was fucking miserable. And I'm like, I can't do this. I cannot have a regular job. So now I'm here doing whatever it takes to like get by, but also like prioritizing my music and my art, whatever it may be, which just makes me infinitely more happy than I ever was trying to like just chase a paycheck. You know what I mean?
Is it hard to find work in what you're doing right now?
Um, so I've had the business for about like 5 years, something like that, and it's been great. Uh, and then, sometimes the work's not coming and
Right.
it freaks you out, but I've done it for long enough that I know it's eventually gonna come back and to try to like block out that stuff and just, work on something else. You know?
Meditate.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, we're at Bash. We're gonna wrap up, man. Is there anything else you want to plug? Anything you want to talk about?
Um, June 15th, Warehouse 11, Nowhere to Be Found record release party. It's just gonna be a crazy show. Also, check out Nowhere to Be Found, the record. I'm super proud of it. I think it's really good. So check it
Oh,
out.
one thing we forgot to talk about. Let's not with the election coming up. Tell me
Huh.
the story of how you and Ark got the picture with Joe Biden. How did that happen?
President Joe Biden.
He
That
was
was like,
vice president at the time, but you still got the
yeah.
pick. How did it happen?
Um, we were on tour. We had played Pittsburgh the night before, and it was so we woke up in Pittsburgh. I think it was that was like the last show of the tour. And Ark is he's the best. He's the best to tour with because he knows like every good restaurant in America. So like, you know, he woke up, he was like, yo, there's this like legendary pancake spot that we need to go to. And I was like, cool, let's do it. We get up, we go to the pancake spot, like turn the corner, and there's a bunch of like dudes in suits outside, and we're like, oh man, this place is popping. Like this is popular as hell. We walk up and they come over and they like pat us down. We were like, "Whoa, we didn't know it was like this. This must be the
These must be some
crazy
good pancakes.
must be the craziest pancakes in the world." You know, had earpieces and stuff. We were like, "What's going on?" We go in, we were like, "Something's happening here. Something weird's happening." But we go and we sit down and we eat, all kind of like looking around, like, who is this very important person, speculating on who it might be. And all of a sudden, Joe Biden like walks in, like, what's up, everybody? Like, people like started cheering, they were like clapping. And there's like, there's like 50 people in the restaurant. And he goes up to every single one of them and like shakes their hand and talks to them. It was hilarious. He just like went around the restaurant, and then he gets to like me and Ark, and he was like, "Oh, what are you guys doing?" He was like, "Oh, we're on tour," and talking to him for a second, and he like sits down to take a picture with us, uh, and Ark's like, this is going to like be the hottest mixtape cover or something like that to Joe Biden," and he goes, "Oh, nice, great." And then posed and looks like a wax figure in the picture. But uh, yeah, and then he got up.
Best pick ever.
I know it's funny.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
it's Esh's deep state. I'm in there. I know the behind the scenes government work.
That's amazing. Word, man. Well, good talking to you, brother. It's been great catching up with you, and I hope to see you
Yeah,
soon.
man, for sure. I'll
Keep
talk to you
doing your
soon.
thing, man.
All right, I will.
And on that note, I'd like to thank everybody tuning into the Leeds Edutainment Podcast. A very special guest, Esh in the Isolations, brother. We'll talk soon.
Peace.
Peace.